Right, I'm going to do a review on how to graph from factored form. I'm going to start with these two down here. So we've factored them, and this is a really easy format. Again, this is a factored form of a quadratic. I know I don't have a ton of room here, but I'm just going to put it up here so we can see what I'm talking about. This P and this Q represent the zeros of your function. The zeros of your function are because there is a zero in place of your y. And the way that I find these is I set my pieces equal to 0, and I solve. So when I set these pieces equal to 0 and I solve, this is going to be negative 2. Negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. This one's going to be negative 4 because negative 4 plus 4 equals 0. So these are my y-intercepts. Negative 2, 0, negative 4, 0. Now, there is a way from here mathematically to find your axis of symmetry, but I can see that it's a negative 3. Mathematically, I take this average of my intercepts. That's going to find the middle. So I'm not surprised it's negative 3. I could see it over here on my graph. So now that I've got my x-intercepts, or my zeros, okay, I need to find the vertex, right? Is it up here? Is it down here? I'm not sure. So the way that I'm going to find it is I'm going to use my axis of symmetry. Remember, that is the x value of your vertex. I'm going to plug it back into this original equation to find my y. So everywhere there's an x, I'm going to put a negative 3. And I'm going to solve. So this leaves me with 1. This leaves me with negative 1. Negative 1 times a positive 1 is a negative 1. Let's come over here. That's my y value. So once I go over to the axis of symmetry, that negative 3, I'm going to go down 1 more. And now I've got the basic idea of what this parabola is going to look like. All right, let's look at the other one. So as I set these equal to 0 to find my zeros, my x-intercepts, this is going to be a negative 5. This one's going to be a negative 1. Negative 5 plus 5 equals 0. Negative 1 plus 1 equals 0. Make sure if you're using this factored form that you write this down. Otherwise, kids get very confused. They try to make this a single point, an ordered pair. And it's just not that. It's not the vertex. It's not a single point. It's 2 points. It's my x-intercepts. And once again, I can see my axis of symmetry. It's right directly in the middle. This happens to be negative 3 again. But to find it mathematically, I find the average of my 2 zeros, or my 2 x-intercepts. And again, I'm not surprised it's a negative 3 because I found the middle visually. The axis of symmetry is the x value of my vertex. To find the y value, I'm going to plug it into the original equation. So everywhere there's an x, I'll put a negative 3. These two examples, it's both been negative 3, but it's not always negative 3. Please don't think that that pattern is for some fancy reason. All right, so it's negative 3, negative 4. All right, I had to push pause because negative 3, negative 4 isn't even on this graph. It would be too low. So I went back to see what I'd done wrong. And what happened is when I drew this arrow pointing to the equation that I'm supposed to plug it in for, I covered up an important part. I covered up that negative. So down here, I left it out. And here I left it out. So this is not negative 4. It is a positive 4. That kind of threw me off for a minute. So negative 3, positive 4 is my vertex. This is what my parabola is going to look like. So you need to write down these steps. When you're in factored form, the first two things you're going to do is find your x-intercepts by setting these pieces equal to 0. Once I have my x-intercepts, I can either use math to find my axis of symmetry, or I can just find it visually. Another reminder, your axis of symmetry is the x portion of your vertex. Once I have the x portion, I can plug it in to my original equation and find the y value. So there are some unique ones that show up. This is one of them. So again, I'm going to start out, because it's a factored form, I'm going to find my x-intercepts. So this one's easy. 2 minus 2 is 0. But this one's funny because it's a multiplication problem. So it's -2 times 0. I think the reason why that one's so strange is because it's the origin, right? We've got the origin as one of our roots. Okay, my axis of symmetry is 1. This is how I find it visually. This is how I find it mathematically. Oh, it's 1. Not a surprise. I'm going to take that axis of symmetry. It's the x value of my vertex. Do you remember how to find the y value of the vertex? Be very careful with my arrow here. I'm going to plug it in here. So to find the y, everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a 1. And use my order of operations. So 1 minus 2 is -1. -2 times +1 is -2. So that's my y value for my vertex. Over 1, up 2. Now every once in a while you might panic, like, why is this facing down? Did I do something wrong? No, if your A is a negative, which it is, it'll face down. Oops, sorry, I went the wrong way. Oh no, I erased it. Okay, so that is the basic gist of factored form. The first thing you should do, find those x-intercepts. You will have 2 of them. And then notice your axis of symmetry, which is also the x value of your vertex. To find the y, plug it back into your equation.